Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is a Freight Coach podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm going to cut right to the chase. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I'm almost a little bit fanboying here. I'm going to be completely honest. He's got some of the best content in the industry that's out there, because he brings a front row seat to a lot of what I think is the coolest part of the industry. And it's those family-owned companies that are out there. He goes on site, he interviews these legacy family companies. And as somebody who comes from the industry and dad drove, like it's very nostalgic for me to watch a lot of his stuff. So I got Mr. Jared Flinn on the show today. Jared, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Chris, happy Martin Luther King Day.
Yes, sir. Happy Martin Luther King Day as well. And you know, man, so Jared, I like to start off every show, and you know, this is the first time you've been on. Dude, how'd you get your start in freight? Like, what brought you into the industry?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying this. You know, you find I grew up in a small, poor farming community, and there's a saying goes, you know, where your pain is, you'll also find your passion. And grew up in a small farming community. A lot of small businesses suffering, farming and all that. Anyways, go on to college, study agriculture, get out of college. First big job is with this grain company called Bartlett Grain Agribusiness. And to be quite honest, never thought I'd go into agriculture, but I knew agriculture. So I went to go work there, but started looking at the market and found out that, number one, there is money to be made in agriculture. Growing up, I never, in farming, like I said, the people that I knew, it was just, it was more of a side kind of job that a lot of people did. Nobody did it full time because there wasn't a lot of money to be made. But then I started looking, and they put me behind the freight desk at this company, and started realizing there were thousands of these small trucking operators. And again, most people listen to this, they're freight professionals, but to the everyday Joe, when you talk about trucking, in their mind, they think of J.B. Hunt, Warner, Swift, Schneider, those big boys. And once I got in there, I was like, oh my gosh, there's thousands of these small owner operators that you, quite frankly, probably never realized that are on the highways. And a lot of these companies that are making a vital supply to the supply chain. So yeah, that's kind of where I got my start, working at Bartlett Grain and just seeing the need that there was in trucking.
So I'm going to jump all around here because from my perspective, knowing that, kind of coming into this industry, that helped me have a better understanding of kind of how I approached things. Like I was, even though I came from the industry, like when I first started brokering as well, it was always that's all you saw was those megas and everything else. But same thing, like we establishing those relationships with those smaller carriers that were out there. and really kind of finding how they wanted to like the lanes that they wanted to operate. But then, also cultivating that niche. Like you brought up bulk there. Like, we specialize in, full truckload flatbed, right? Like that's the best way to describe what I do. And, I've called a couple of places here over the last couple of weeks, and that's all they do. They're like, hey man, we're bulk. And, I'm smart enough that I guess at this point in my life to be like, yeah, I don't even want to attempt to do that, because, it is a whole other understanding of the industry, and, pricing it out, and everything else by the hundredweight or however the customer needs that done, and not having an understanding of that and being able to bring that product out there. So, when I first saw your content, it was probably 4 some years ago, I want to say, was when I saw, or, in that time frame, and I fell onto your YouTube channel, and, I am like, I get, every time I hear a Jake break to this day, it triggers an emotion of like hearing my dad coming home. And so it's like, when I saw your channel, I'm like, man, I love these stories. I love the family owned companies, like we were just talking about the family in Pennsylvania, where, they still had their dad's original, like 1967 Pete running out there. Another one that comes to mind was a company in Minnesota who just does bulk liquid, like I believe just oils. They got, I know that they have red trucks. That's all that comes up. They have like a 60, 70 fleet operation that's out there that kind of comes down. And I think they do farming and trucking. And I'm like, man, like for me, it's the nostalgia of growing up in that. But like, I'm just from a small farming community in northern Wisconsin, like, and that's all that we saw out there. So it's like, and then you being boots on the ground, interviewing these families, and like, that's trucking to me. No offense to any of the larger operations or companies that are out there, but that's trucking to me. And that's what I love the most about this industry.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, I'll end where you find where your pain is, you find your passion. One thing I realized when I worked at this company, Bartlett Grain, a lot of people really had a stigma towards these small owner operators. And again, when I worked at this company, I worked with a lot of these commodity traders, merchandisers, and a lot of times they'd say, "Hey Jared, go find me a truck." And I'm like, "You mean go hire like a professional driver?" But I mean, there was just this where, hey, I need 5 trucks here, need 10 trucks here, da 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 da. But I realized like they were just really thinking about it as a commodity, another commodity, and that's where I saw that, man, these people, they have families, they have homes, they have farms, and how do we kind of lift them up? And actually, another colleague when I worked at Bartlett, there was a joke that a lot of people would really, characterize your everyday truck driver as a quote dirtball. That's what a lot of people thought of them. And we said, man, we got to change this perception of the trucking. But yeah, I'll say this, so I just saw that there was a way that, man, if we could lift these people up, serve this class better, number one, they deserve it. Number two, we'll have a client for life. And that's kind of why we do, we talk about the content in 2020. We really came together and said, hey, let's really focus more on content marketing and really tell the stories of our audience. I mean, today we have 7,000 companies on our platform, but let's go out and really talk to them. And again, number one, there's, for every one of these stories, there's thousands of others that have that same story. So a lot of these people can relate. So when you go behind the scenes, show these people who we're dealing with, again, it just brings a whole nother level of, number one, how we serve these companies, but also just the trust that we have with this community.
So what came first? Was it the load board and everything with BulkLoads, and then the content came from that? Or was it, you were kind of building them up simultaneously at the time?
BulkLoads, we started in 2011. So,
okay.
So we're on year 14 of that. It wasn't probably 2016 or 17 is when we really said, hey, let's start doing these videos. At that time, we had it was actually a buddy locally, actually a gym buddy, that he had a videographer company, and he said, hey Jared, I can go out, and he goes, I can do these at a pretty low cost. So that's really what started it, probably almost 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. Those videos, we'd produce these small 2-3 minute clips. So we go out and video. And again, even at that time, today, there's still people that are kind of shy to get in front of the camera. But today, a lot more people are willing to do that in these companies. They see the value. 8 years ago, you tell a company like, hey, we want to come out and film and interview. They'd be like, no way, no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But we started asking some of our clients if we could come out and do that 8 years ago. And that's really what started. 2020, though, is where we actually said, hey, let's get more serious with this. We know that this is valuable. We know this content that we produce can live forever, on YouTube. It can, it may cost a full day of, drive and hotel, video editing, go through all that. But once you got a great piece, it's something that you can continue to use. So that's where we really went all in. And today our goal is, it comes and goes. I'm on the road a lot, but yeah, we try to push out one of these high quality, some of them are 25 to 30 minute videos, telling these stories. So yeah, we actually still have, I think we got 4 that we've recorded. We're just doing the editing. And that's probably the hardest is we have an amazing videographer and editing crew, but man, if you, it's a work of art. So it takes time. You can't just, hey, push this out. But I mean, just catching all those camera angles, lining up the right music, finding those spots that are going to draw people's attention into. So yeah, it's actually a lot of fun. It's I never thought I'd be going and doing these video shoots, but it's super, super fulfilling. I absolutely love it.
No, I mean, and that's what you can tell, like I've interviewed a lot of people at this point. I consume a lot of content, and you can tell there's just a different level of, like, when you're out there speaking to these families, like the passion that comes through both of you too, right? It's not just the business owner, it's you. And like, you love what you are doing. It is very, very evident in how you're interviewing people. And when I'm watching that and I'm seeing those stories, and I'm just thinking back on, all those times that like the founders of those companies, like what they went through to get those companies to that point, and all the market ups and downs and everything else, and how they just like, it was just like, it was all about the work to them. And then like in just seeing how, like, what they were doing and then how they started those companies. Like as an entrepreneur myself, I love hearing from founders about, like, what was it that made you say, all right, enough's enough. I want to jump in and do this on my own. And what's crazy is about trucking is, you look at even some of the largest brands that are out there right now. Like, you look at JB Hunt, for example, that started with one truck, and then, same with Warner. That's where their story came from. Martin Refrigerated in Wisconsin out of Mondovi, that started with one truck back in the day. And then how these all just compound over time, over a 80, 90, 100 years in trucking and stuff like that. And then you find those ones where, it was a family-owned company, and they grew it to a size, and like, they're like, hey, this is as big as we want to go, and then like they really rely on that. And I just, again, I love that style of content. I love those stories of those family-owned businesses, and, where it went, the founder's still involved. They might be 90 years old, but they're still showing up every day. And then their kids are running it. And now the grandkids are starting out in the shop and, and banging tires and stuff like that. Cause dude, like that was my first job, was washing the rims on my dad's truck when he came home. Like that was it. He came home from off the road, fill up a bucket of Sub Chris and go wash the wheels. That was it.
Yeah. Well, over on our load board today, we gladly serve over 7,000 trucking companies, but obviously a lot of these are small onesie twosie. Some have been in the business for years, some new, but you know how this is. You got a lot of, I should say a lot, but there's a lot of naysayers in the industry. And when I first started in the industry, you see this very cyclical, cycle, this churn of trucking companies that kind of come in and out. And one of the other reasons with this video, like, it's like, there's a lot of successful companies out there. How do we find that content and show that content to these others out there that are trying to make it? And again, not everybody's going to make it. Everybody has different wishes, but I guess that's the other thing too. It's like, I think we can point the finger and say the problem with the industry is these guys, and I mean, you go through the list, and this is why the freight industry's crap, because da 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 da. But dude, there's these companies that weather the storm. They're in it. I mean, year after year after year. Yeah, they have their ups and downs and ups and downs. And I guess that's where I'm really trying to debunk or really go against the odds and show people, like, there are successful companies out here that have weathered the storm. They all started with one truck. Now they got 20, they got 30. And Chris, I know not everybody's going to want to do that. Not everybody wants to get to that size, but a lot of people do. They want that dream. They want that American dream. They want that where they can build up that successful company. So that's, I guess my prayer is I want to show this content to show people that there are ways to make it in there. There's a saying, and I'll pass it back to you. This last year, and I always like just kind of creatively thinking, but like I have this saying, like, hey, you have to think outside the bulk.
Yeah.
Now, when I say thinking outside the bulk, thinking outside the box, thinking outside the bulk, the successful companies, not that a lot of these videos that I've done and push out there, they're not just hauling bulk. These guys, they have other businesses that all kind of make up this ecosystem to where they can survive. Some of these companies, they have, I'm just going to name a few. They've created their own washout facilities where now they can wash out other tanks or hopper trailers or anything like that. They have trailer rental services where they can rent trailers to other companies. And you can go through the list. Obviously, a lot of them, they bolted on a brokerage. But they figured out these other avenues. They had storage. Some of these they've created landscape and rock facilities where they actually buy the commodity itself and sell it. I was just talking to a guy last week. So I guess that's where I look at it. It's like, what else can we be showing these people to build a successful business? Kind of think outside the bulk, but what are these other add-ons that you could do? So when bulk freight rates, just like other freight rates, go down, you have another source of income or a way to diversify.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it, right? And that was, and that's another thing. I'm glad you pointed that out. And because there is a large underbelly of the industry, what I want to refer to it as is like, who don't pay attention to the headlines, because like this isn't just a job to them. Like this is a calling. This is a family legacy. They're out there like, man, I'm going to weather the storm, right? Like I will find a solution no matter what, because they've been through the ebbs and the flows of this stuff. They didn't come into trucking to like get rich quick, which like there's a large percentage of people online who think that you can just get rich in trucking. And it does not quick. It's a very lucrative industry to be involved in, but it takes time. And there are the cycles of this stuff. And, and that's one thing that, a lot of the content that I put out there as well is it's like, like I say at the beginning of every show, like this is by transportation professionals for transportation professionals. Like I'm not trying to sell anybody a course on anything. I'm here to talk about the realities of what I go through as an operator who's actively building a company out there in the industry, right? Like I'm not just posting about it, or I'm not a consultant that has never actually, I couldn't even tell you how many wheels are on an 18-wheeler, put it that way. And so it's like for me, because like I'm not doing this to like build a company up and sell and leave, like, right? Like this is it for me. Like this is my life. This is my livelihood. This is how I provide for my family. And this is hopefully this is something that I'm going to pass on to my son and, my future children and grandchildren. Like I want to build that up. And I think that, there's always going to be tough times. Like business is not always just because you started an LLC, you're just instantly profitable and a millionaire and you don't have to worry about anything, right? Like there's a lot of ups and downs of this, but there is a path and a playbook that people have followed time and time again, whether it's in bulk freight, whether it's in, full truckload, it doesn't matter. There are companies who have been around for a very long time. And there is a way to operate in those times. And, one thing that I've learned in business is when times are good, you should probably be operating like times are bad and not spending in a certain type of way. And, I think that's a big part of it, regardless of what side of business you're in. Cash flow is everything. Managing your expenses is everything. And, you got to go through some of those down markets where you're like, how am I going to pay my bills? Before you actually realize like, all right, I got to stop spending. I got to cut where I can. I got to improve my margins in any way that I possibly can so I can be competitive out there and compete. Because although the bulk side of the industry is different from like a pricing perspective on like the full truckload rate per mile style of thing. Like you were saying, man, you guys have ups and downs. You guys are, I'm sure commodities are traded at, higher levels and lower levels, and you got to find a way to make that work.
Yeah, and especially the industry that we're in, bulk, all trucking competes with railroads and barge and vessel, but the industry that we're in, I would say it's even more. And the reason for that is barges, vessels, railroads, they absolutely love bulk commodities because they can load it fast, they can unload it fast, they can keep moving quicker than, hauling, like I said, lumber or cars or anything like that. So in our industry, especially bulk, like I said, I think for us, you see smaller, there's coast to coast freight that moves, but in our industry, it's more pocketed. It's more regional. You're not going to see, people ask all the time. I think if you average, and this is just a guess, but all bulk freight as a whole, bulk trucking freight, most of it moves on average probably 200 miles. It really doesn't move much further than that just because of the outside forces, competitive forces that you have with, again, rail, barge, vessel, to compete against it.
Is it, so, speaking about that, is that like a lot of it, and I'm just pulling off of one of the videos that I saw about the guys that did food, liquid bulk for food.
Yep.
And they're all, I think, like 80 to 120 some miles away from their farm. Is that just like FDA standards that require it, that like, hey, from harvest, it has to be on production in this time or the product starts to spoil? Is that a big part of that? Or is that mainly because, well, the Midwest is the Midwest at the end of the day, and we are all agriculture for the most part, forestry, all of that stuff?
I think it'd be a little bit of both. The video that you were referring to, they were more segmented because one of their the customer, which I can't say the name of, probably the largest grape juice customer in the country, or manufacturer, they had a terminal up there, and a lot of it was tributary to that terminal where most of it would go through. But I would think, again, food. I mean, agriculture. A lot of this stuff is perishable items, so you got to think it's the shelf life on it's limited. So a lot of times your transportation cost has got to be a lot more sensitive.
Do more of in the bulk carriers, do a lot of them offer multiple services? Because like, are they buying, like some of them have, different, just like the seasonality of it, right? Because I feel like at least in the agricultural bulk, there are very much seasonal swings that come along with it. So have you, throughout the people that you've interviewed, have you found that they all have multiple different trailer types to kind of attack the region throughout the year? Like, we got corn in the fall and everything else, and then in the spring it's this. Do you see that more out there?
Yeah, 100%. Not all, but one common thread that we see a lot, especially with the grain and feed guys, most of those guys also run flatbeds, and for a couple reasons. Most of your grain guys are also farmers, so a lot of these guys have they farm property, so they have that grain trailer that they use for their farm, but they use it for commercial. But a lot of them also run flatbeds because they need to move equipment, and they can also use that. So it all depends, but a lot of times in the grain and feed industry, it starts to slow down kind of late winter, early spring. You got planting season going on. So a lot of those guys, they may unhook the hopper trailer, grain trailer, but a lot of them hook on a flatbed because springtime, this, Chris, you get into landscape season, you get into your mulch, all that stuff. So building materials. So a lot of it, it's a good hedge that we have. But the other ones too, like especially bulk. There's non-ag bulk, but let's just say in the agriculture sector, a lot of these companies, they work for these big seed manufacturers. So these guys, they're bringing in bulk seed in big grain trailers, but then they also got van trailers that they're taking the palletized or super sacks of that out. So they're serving that client in multiple ways, not just doing their bulk, but also on their finished product. And we see a lot of it, and especially the companies that do really well. Because they want to serve that customer all the way around. They don't want that customer having to go look for another transportation company to move, their, van stuff or flatbed stuff. They want to be able to do it all with them.
No, and that's, right there for me, at least in getting into that niche. Like I have my primary service offering for existing clients. That's when it's like, you kind of got to spider that out and attack other modes of it, right? Where I'm anti-blanket selling right away. I'm very much singular focus. And then, for a lot of my flatbed customers, expedited sprinter vans, dry vans, stuff like that. Like that's where the additional service offerings come in, because you're right, man. I don't want them going to anybody else who could possibly, go out there and, be competitive or possibly take the food off my plate. Right. So I feel like it's a very, it's a very common, tactic out there.
The one thing too, a lot of people don't realize with grain and feed, the industry, the seasonality, number one, but things can really change. So just perfect example, let's just say corn. There's corn all over the Midwest. Well, depending on the export markets, depending on even the interior demand, one time you'll see corn moving south from, let's just say, Iowa down into Missouri. Well, then the next year, say Iowa has a drought or something like that. Then all of a sudden you see all this corn moving from Missouri back up to Iowa. So yeah, there's some patterns, but especially in the grain and feed industry, you can see things just turn on a dime. You can see the market being hot now in Kansas, and then the next year it's the complete opposite. And I think that's why, people always talk. A lot of our big grain companies, big agribusinesses, don't run big trucking fleets, and I think that's one of the reasons why, because of the seasonality. I mean, ADM and Cargill, they do have some dedicated freight, and I don't know the company on the inside, but I would say crazy amount is all for hire or hired out versus their own, and just because of those reasons, because of the market forces.
Yeah. So how are, you have a conference that you do as well. Is that kind of the melting pot of, because obviously I saw there's trucking companies that are there, brokers that are there, shippers that are there, but it's all bulk related. Is that kind of bringing that together? And then that's the source of BulkLoads at the end of the day, because if they're a bulk shipper, they don't need somebody calling them that does not know bulk, right? Like it's a very, especially if that's all they do. So is that what you guys are out there? Are you guys talking about a lot of that stuff? Kind of break down, what is this conference? Because that's coming up here in April, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. So first off, I love conferences, and some of the ones that I've been to out there. I like to network with people, and there's a saying, your network is your net worth. One thing we realized with BulkLoads, like, we digitally matched or created a marketplace where we're matching shippers, brokers, and carriers up online. Well, we thought to ourselves, why not do that physically? Like, we're bringing these people together, and a lot of these people, especially in the freight industry, you can be dealing with someone for 15, 20 years and never meet the person. So we said, hey, why not create a conference, really kind of put our mark being, a bulk only conference, bring these people together to meet, number one, but to network, strengthen those relationships. But also, man, when you bring people together, you get new ideas, new innovations. And I think that's where we really just saw that, man, we could really strengthen all capacities, even our business units, but also have these people meet. So yeah, this year will be our third annual, and every year. So our first year, 2 years ago, we had 200 people show up. Last year we had 500. Right now we're projecting over 1,200. They're going to be in attendance. Yeah, we grew out of the venue that we were at in Springfield. It'll be down in Branson, Missouri. So, which is awesome because Branson, first off, it's a tourist area, very family friendly. There's so much you can do. You got the lake, you got golf courses, just an amazing amount of amenities. But there's a huge convention center, so we'll have it down there. The first couple of years, again, just had it inside the smaller venue. This one, we've got a lot of the top bulk trailer manufacturers that are sponsors, that they'll actually have equipment pulled in there. So if you've ever been to Louisville or the Mid-America Truck Show, it's going to have a little bit of that feel because we'll actually have trailer manufacturers in there. We'll have, I think, 5 to 10 show trucks in there. Some of our clients that actually have these just full blown out high class rigs in there. So it's going to be super excited. Right now, especially now that we're into the new year, like every week we're spending amazing amount of hours planning, getting all this stuff put together. And I'm not nervous yet, but it's as we get closer to. But no, it's awesome, man. And anybody listen to this, and even you, Chris, man, would invite you all to come down. Last year, and this is just a selfish plug, we had several people that told us that, hey, I've been to conferences my whole life. This conference was the best one ever. And I think just because we made it so much more intimate. First off, the conference isn't a moneymaker for us. We try to do it. And I think in some ways we've done it as a disservice because people say, because you can buy a ticket right now for $300. I mean, this ticket really, the value that they're getting, it should be a $2,000 ticket. But we discount it because we're just doing it really just to put someone on the hook to come to the conference. But it'll be everything. We'll have some big headline speakers, some panels, some breakout sessions. We got a lot of entertainment lined up. We got a comedian coming in. So this was going to be pretty fun.
No, I love it. And then it's also like, for the most part, most people who are going are in it, right? And then would you say, is there any like mega fleets that do bulk primarily, or is it kind of like on the full truckload side where it's a lot of smaller operators, small, and small is relative, you guys. I'm saying, that 50, 60 truck operation on down. Is that kind of where it is? And then, again, I always like, you only know what you know. And then until you're in a room with somebody who can, relate on those pain points of like, hey man, this is how we went from 10 to 20 trucks. This is what we did. Is that a lot of them, more of those collaborative conversations that are going on?
Yeah, so one of our main speakers last year, we would consider the largest bulk hopper carrier in the United States. They're up out of Minnesota. Fultz Trucking is the name, they actually, I think they run close to 200 trucks or power units, but they own 1,200 trailers. They a different program, but yeah, Ken Fultz, good friend of mine. Actually, I went up and spoke at their conference last fall, but they came down to speak. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head, because a lot of people, the 10 truck guy is wanting to look, he's looking at the 20 truck guy. How do you get to 20? The 20 truck guy is looking at the 50 truck guy. The 50 truck guy is looking at the 100 truck guy. You can go through the list. So yeah, it's a lot of that, just some of those best practices. But I've talked to some guys just over this last year, and they're like, dude, I met this, the guy you mentioned, Minnesota, Robert Grover. He's like, I met that Robert Grover. We stayed connected. He's sent me some stuff. I've sent him some stuff. So yeah, trucking companies compete to a certain extent, but like, the guy in Minnesota is not competing with the guy in Kansas.
Yeah.
The guy in Kansas isn't competing with the guy in Georgia. So if we can bring all these guys together, kind of create this best in class trends, yeah, just beautiful things happen.
Man, I love it. Jared, dude, I'm going to have you back on. I could talk to you for hours, but it's like this show is for everybody that has a day job, and I always try to keep it at that 30-minute mark. But man, how does anybody reach out to you? Put your channels out there. You guys got to check out his YouTube channel, right? If you have even a sliver of love for the trucking industry, you're going to love Jared's YouTube channel and what he does with a lot of his on-site interviews. So put all that stuff out there, man.
Yeah, so just search, everything we have is bulk. So BulkLoads, but search that on YouTube. Would love you to subscribe to the channel. I'm just like you, Chris. I'm huge on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I connect with everybody. I love to network and see how I can help others, or work together with people. So find me there. If you are a company out there and you maybe don't deal with bulk, or maybe you deal with a little bulk, you're trying to figure out how to deal more with it, check out BulkLoads.com. We do a subscription base, but yeah, we can walk you through anything from dry bulk, liquid bulk. I'm not going to name all the trailer types, but if you have a client that's dealing with bulk, yeah, we'd love to talk to you. Hey, Chris, before you go, man, I just want to say, it was a while back, man, you kind of talked about your alcoholism. Man, dude, I just want to say, praise God. Thank you for acknowledging that. And I think, dude, you probably hit a lot more people than you realize that probably suffer in that same area. And I think you have helped probably heal a lot of people. So I just want to say, praise God for you. And thank you for being bold about doing that.
No, absolutely, man. That's the whole point is, I kind of got a point with that where I'm like, man, I can't be the only one. And if my story just helps one person, it's worth telling. And that's what, that's the beauty of content and everything now, Jared, is it's like, I wish more people were more open to speaking their truth, because it's not as scary as you'd think. And, ultimately, I don't do this, like, I'm not doing this to get famous, man. I'm just doing this to help others. And if my story can help somebody out there, man, that's what it's all about to me. So
if you ever have me on, I got some truth that I'll tell that'll shock some people. So
yeah, no, absolutely, man. We'll have to run this back sometime, Jared, but I appreciate it. And that's going to be it for today, you guys. As I know you guys got value out of this one. And if you did and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show. If you're feeling really anxious about it, rank this on iTunes and Spotify as well, because if you saw value, that's how your network's going to probably see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.